explain it in Avodah a lot. Okay, Elo told us Noach is Tzaddik. So the question by all the Mefarshim and in Chassidus and even in Rashi is bothered by this. Why does it say twice the word Noach? These are the history of the offspring of Noach. Noach was a man, a tzaddik. It's known the analysis of this. Why does it say twice Noach? There are different and many explanations for it. First of all, but Teseftel Azayr Metaritz, in that place called Teseftel Azayr, he answers, called Tzaddik Tzaddik the Ba'alma, every single tzaddik in the world. Islay Train Ruchin, he has two levels of Ruach, two neshamas. Bechinas Nefesh v'Ruach. He has a Ruach Chad Ba'alma Dein, he has one Ruach in this world, v'Ruach Chad Ba'alma Da'asi, and one Ruach, one spirit, one neshama in the world to come. This you will find in all the tzaddikim, that it says their names repeated in the Torah. Moshe, it says, doubled his name. Yaakov, Hashem called him twice by the name Yaakov. Avram. Bar mi Yitzchak. The exception to this is Yitzchak. We don't find that Hashem called to Yitzchak, said Yitzchak. The like siv bei kamadach siv behu doesn't say by Yitzchak like it says by Moshe, by Yaakov, by Avram, and by Noach. How come? It doesn't mean that he was lacking anything, but the reason is begin the Yitzchak b'shaita diskarav al gabe madbecha, when Yitzchak in his time was brought as an offering on the mizbeach, nafkish nishmasa dahava be'bahayalma, his neshama that was located in this world left his body. V'tavas bei nishmasad almadas, it came into him the neshama of the world to come. So that's why it doesn't say twice the name Yitzchak, because he had in this world the neshama of the world to come, instead of all the rest of the tzaddikim that had the neshama in this world and the neshama of the world to come that would come in the future. Nimtzah the Mefarish B'Zohar comes out that the Zohar explains the Masha number Noach based pump. The fact that it says Noach twice, Roim is al Ruach Sheba'alma Dein, while Ruach Sheba'alma Da'asi, it hints at the neshama that these tzaddikim, including Noach, had in this world, and the neshama that he has in the world to come. The Medrash in the Medrash it's brought down the Noach Umalash Naicha Derucha. The word Noach is the word Nachas Ruach, a pleasing spirit. Why does it say Noach twice? Both he was pleasing to the ones above, to Hashem, and also he was pleasing to those down below. Or the Lashon the Medrash is the opposite order. The first Noach is going on what he was pleasing to those down here below, and the second Noach is going on pleasing above. Now, superficially, it seems to be two distinct explanations, but the Rebbe always wants to find the common denominator, and he says that really these two explanations are really like one. We could say the Beis HaPirushim. These two explanations, Rucha ba'alma deinu ba'alma da'asi, the spirit in the neshama in this world, and the neshama in the world to come, and the Pirush of the Medrash, v'naichel tachtoinim v'al he's pleasing to below and he's pleasing to above. Shayachim zalazar, connected one to another. The Amr Azal, because the Chazal say, Hayom la'asoi som l'mach l'kabel skara. Today you're supposed to do the mitzvahs, and tomorrow you're supposed to receive the reward. So therefore, Mizendim comes out the Alma Dein Hu B'Tachtoinim. When we talk about this world, it's where we do the mitzvahs. It's talking about down here. Shalom Razal Hayom la'asoi som, concerning this world, the Chazal said today it's to do it. So therefore, that connects with the neshama, the way it's in the world down here. The world to come, that's in the supernal worlds. Concerning that, Chazal say, tomorrow you'll receive reward. So therefore, the neshama of the world to come has to do with the pleasing for the Elyonim, meaning the reward that the neshama will receive above. The Rebbe says, we need to understand, skip the brackets, according to the above mentioned two explanations. Where it says twice the word Noach, This shows on the perfection and on the completion of Noach's avodah. When do we say he has his neshama down here? That means his perfection of his avodah. And especially when we're talking about the neshama in the world to come, it means when he's reached his completion, he's reached his perfection. So too, that he's a nachas ruach, he's pleasing to the ones above, and he's pleasing to those below. Is when he completes and perfects his avodah. So seemingly it doesn't belong here in our parsha. Our parsha is right in the middle. Why is it saying Noach twice? In continuation to what it says, these are the histories and the offspring of Noach. Shakavon, Be'ela told us Kanhu, the intention, the meaning, when it says, these are the children over here, is Kishmaisha Pirish Rashi, like Rashi explains. She'ikr told the same, Shal Tzadikim Hem Maisim Toivim. The Ikr children of Tzadikim are good deeds. Dahainu Betchilos Avedasai. We're talking here at the beginning of his avodah, when he's starting to do good deeds, and therefore he is being saved from the mabul. It doesn't say twice Noach after the mabul. When Hashem smelled the pleasing scent of the carbon that he brought, and when he perfected and completed his avodah, and then he made a nachas ruach above. So it's in the wrong place where it should have said twice Noach. Especially so if you compare it to when Avram was said twice and Moshe was said twice. These were all when they reached a certain height and completion of their avodah. Especially Avram, Yaakov, and Moshe, when their names were repeated, this was said at the completion or perfection of their avodah. Another aspect to this, the Rebbe adds, when we talk about what the Medrash said, that means pleasing down here below and pleasing above. Moving even more, it's not understood la pirish, the base that the explanation that twice Noach is that it's pleasing to above and pleasing to below. The pleasing down here below happens only after Hashem scented the pleasing scent. Then it became pleasing down here below. Then Hashem said that all the days of the earth, the planting season and the harvest season, the cold season, the hot season, the summer and the winter, day and night will not cease. As Kashkin Asati Ba'anon, I placed my rainbow in the cloud to show my promise and my oath about this. So therefore, when did the world derive benefit from Noach? The world derived benefit after Hashem reassured Noach that he won't anymore do such a thing to the world. The pleasing down below occurred specifically after the flood. Even more so, also what was pleasing in a nachas ruach for above happened only after the mabul, because the fact that it's pleasing above is dependent upon what's pleasing below. Similar to what it says concerning Hashem, skip the brackets again. Hashem swore, I will not enter the heavenly Yerushalayim until I return to the Yerushalayim down here below. So we see that what goes on in the spiritual spheres are dependent down here. So just like what Hashem said concerning Yerushalayim, the same thing concerning the pleasing above, that can only happen once there's pleasing down here below. And therefore, why before the Mabels say twice Noach when we hadn't yet reached that level? Why does it say twice Noach before Hashem scented and smelled the pleasing scent of the karbonos of Noach that he offered after he came safely out of the flood? The Rebbe says, you have to look at it either way. Either look at totally the beginning or look totally at the end, not in the middle. Or he should have written twice Noach at the end of last week's parsha, where he said that there was a person called Noach and he was pleasing and he found favor in Hashem's eyes. So right away at the beginning, he should have said twice Noach, because that's what he would be about. Skip the brackets to the next line. Or it should have said twice Noach when he completed the service, after Hashem smelled the pleasing scent of the carbon that Noach brought after he came out of the ark, after he came out of the table. Now, another inyan he brings in, and also we need to understand. It's brought down the Zohar in the pasuk, Toldos Noach, Noach ish Tzaddik. This is the histories or the children of Noach. Noach is a Tzaddik. Rabbi Chia opened up and introduced the following concept. Va'amech kulam tzadikim. We say your entire nation are tzadikim. La'olam yirshu aretz. They will all inherit forever. They will inherit the earth. Tachazi, come and see. Kol Yisrael Islam Chulkad Lamad Asi. Every single Jew has a portion in the world to come, like we say from this pasuk in the as an introduction to Pirkei Avos. My time, he doesn't explain why. In Pirkei Avos, doesn't explain why the Yidden are called tzaddikim, but the Zohar explains why they called tzaddikim. Begin the natrin beris the alma, because they guard the covenant, meaning they keep the bris milah. The alma is kayim alei, because the world is it survives and stands upon the bris milah. Then moving for this is understood. The fact that Noach is an each tzaddik is applicable to every single yid, because we're saying va'amech kulun tzaddikim. So it's not just a unique thing about Noach. After there's a whole discussion about what the Zohar means and what's the connection between Noach tzaddik and every single Jew being called a tzaddik. But this is what's brought down the Zohar. The Noach ish tzaddik shayach l'cholech d'vach Yisrael. That the statement that Noach is a tzaddik is applicable to every single yid. According to this, we have to say the inyan Noach based pomim shayach gamkin cholech Yisrael. That idea Noach twice is also applicable to every single Jew. We need to understand what's the idea that we say twice Noach in the avoid of every single yid. It's not just about understanding how Noach, that person that lived thousands of years ago, had it, but since Noach has to do with every yid, we need to understand how it's every single person, every single Jewish person. So now he's going to bring in a little bit Kabbalah, but then he's going to explain it in a down-to-earth type of fashion. All this will be understood according to what's brought down in the Sefer Eira Torah of the Tzemach Tzedek. In the concept of Noach and the Ark of Noach, there are two explanations of what that corresponds to in the spiritual realms. The first explanation is that Teva hi Yisoid Ema, that the Ark of Noach is the Yisoid, the sphere of Yisoid, the way it's part of Bina. Essentially, it's Bina of Atzilus, the sphere of Bina, the second sphere of Atzilus. Noach hu Yisoid Abba, and Noach is the Yisoid of Chachma, meaning, again, we're talking about Chachma Bina. Noach and the Teva is Chachma and Bina. That's the idea that Noach entered the Teva, Boyal Teva, come into the ark. It's about the enclothing of the Yisoid of Chachma to the Yisoid of Bina, meaning the union of these two spheres, which in Kabbalah has very great impact and import. The union of Chachma Bina, just like the union of father and mother creates children, the same thing, Olam Shachas begin with the union of Chachma Bina. So that's Noach and the Ark of Noach. That's one explanation. Pirush Hasheni, second explanation, skip the brackets 3 lines further, almost at the beginning of the line, that Teva Yisoid Malchus, that the Ark, that's the Yisoid of the spheres of Malchus. Noach hu Yisoid Ze'er Ampin, and Noach is Yisoid of the spheres of the midas called Ze'er Ampin. V'zeh masher Noach nichnas el ha-teva. That's what Noach entered the teva boil, a teva come into the teva hainu al boshes yisoid Ze'er Ampin b'yisoid malchus. It's the enclothing of the yisoid of the midas into the yisoid of malchus. So instead of the union of the masculine and the feminine, of Chachma Bina, father and mother, instead it's the union which is called the union of Chasna and Kala, which is Zeir Ampin, the Midos, and Malchus of Atzilus. That's why it says twice Noach, to indicate these two types of unions, corresponding to the two levels of the ark. Either it's Yisoid of Bina or Yisoid of Malchus. There has to be two distinct levels of Noach, two different levels of Noach that will enter into two distinct levels of the ark. Yisoid Abba Hamislabish Yisoid Ima, the level of Yisoid of Chachma that comes into the Yisoid of Bina, Yisoid Zeir Ampin Hamislabish Yisoid Malchus, and the Yisoid Sphira of Zeir Ampin, the way it's enclosed in the Yisoid of Malchus. So now the mimer is going to explain this in down-to-earth terms. What does this mean in our world, in our service of Hashem, like we were talking about before, that the twice Noach applies to every single Yid, because every single Yid, the Zohar associates with the Tzaddik of Noach. So third paragraph on the page, these two levels of the Ark of Noach, Yisoid Ima, Yisoid Malchus, Ba'avoida. Yesh Loimer, we could say, what does it mean in the service of Hashem? Shuachiluk bein Torah and mitzvahs, it's the difference and distinction between Torah and mitzvahs. The Torah, Torah, which is about understanding and comprehension, he bechinas Yisoid Ima, it's about mother, it's about Bina. Bina is about understanding, developing an idea, completely bring it into all the details and so on. But on the other hand, mitzvahs, one has to fulfill it with accepting the yoke of heaven. One has to do it because Hashem commanded us, like we accept the yoke of a king. Since the word of the king rules, it's the level of Sfiras HaMalchus. This idea that Torah is the level of Sfiras HaBinah, and mitzvahs has to do with the sphere of Malchus. Also is connected to what it says in Chumash Devarim we have, and what is revealed to us and to our children. So Chassidus explains, Vav K is Niglos. The letter Vav K of the Shem Yud K Vav K are the levels of godliness that's revealed. So the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, the Vav Hi Torah. The level of the letter Vav has to do with Torah. The Hey Achroina, the final Hey, which is the final Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, has to do with Malchus. That's the level of mitzvahs. Why does Vav have to do with Torah, which we connected it with Bina? The letter Vav goes on the levels of the emotions. Vav is the 6 emotional attributes. Chesed, Gvura, etc. We know the emotions are connected with the sphere of Bina, ki Bina hi ema banim, because Bina is called the mother of the children. It's what gives birth to the emotions. Torah, which is the level of letter of Vav, which has to do with Midos. Midos of Torah have to do with the dual nature of Torah. There is chesed aspects of Torah. This is permitted and kosher and allowed. This is prohibited. This is negative. This is gvura. So that's a midas type of duality in Torah. But that's connected to Bina, understanding. That also has to do with the Hey Rishoner. Has to do with the first letter Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Hey Achroina, the final letter Hey of Yud Kei Vav Kei, he mitzvahs is the level of mitzvahs. How come? What does the final letter Hey have to do with mitzvahs? We know that the form of the Hey, that's made up of 3 lines, top, right, and left. So the top line goes on the power of thought, the right line goes on speech, and the left line is action, because these are the 3 things with which we perform mitzvahs. We perform it in thought, speech, and deed. Since the 2 levels of the ark, the spiritual ark, which is Torah mitzvahs. There's the ark of Torah, which is, we said before, is Bina, and there's the ark of mitzvahs, which is Malchus. They are distinct and different one from another. We must say, also the idea of coming into the ark. The Beis Abchinas the Teva Torah mitzvahs, in the two levels of the ark, depending, is it the ark of Torah or is it the ark of mitzvahs? The way we immerse ourselves in Torah is different than the way we enter and immerse ourselves in mitzvahs. The Rebbe is going to explain how that is different. Last paragraph on the page. The idea behind this is the way one studies Torah, one needs to be totally expansive, use all their faculties, invest themselves completely. It's not about a state of bit like the Rebbe is going to explain at length. Because through the Torah study it becomes an unbelievable unity with Hashem, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Perek Hey in Tanya. Chazal said, Man Malka Rabbanon, that the Rabbanon are considered kings. Just like a king is very expansive and big and large, the same thing the Chachamim, through their Torah study, are master things. They are called like masters and kings. And the Torah study has to be specifically with understanding and comprehension. It's insufficient just to have belief while studying Torah. And he explains very practically. He's going to say, what do I have to go and exert my brain? He's going to say, he'll believe that this is what Hashem wanted, and he doesn't have to work on understanding. So that's insufficient. We need to understand. It's insufficient, even the idea that one has to take the Amunah, make it grow and feed the Amunah. He believes that since it's the word of Hashem, what it says in the Torah, so he's sure there's some type of intellectual explanation, but I don't have to strain my brain to figure out what that explanation is. But rather, there has to be an understanding, comprehension, actuality. To be able to actually comprehend the words and the thoughts of Hashem, the words of Torah, one needs to have great toil and effort. It should come in understanding and comprehension. So then he's going to say, why should I bother? Hashem is surely right. Why do I have to exert my mind? I could be doing other things at this time. He says it's a waste of time to toil in comprehending Torah when I know it's true anyway, even if I don't understand it. Instead, I'll spend my time in those things that I can accomplish, which is mitzvahs. Still in all, despite what he might think, in the Torah study there has to be toil and understanding and comprehension. It's insufficient to just say, if God knows, if God says this, for sure he's right. Let's skip over to the next page a little bit. Page 348, second word on the top of the page. V'yiseirim, and even more so. Also in matters of belief and faith. Even the mitzvah of belief in Hashem. So you would think there's no idea of using one's mind. Still in all, we have to use our mind. There still has to be the knowledge and understanding, like the Rambam writes at the beginning of his Sefer Mishnah Torah. The Rambam begins that it's a mitzvah to know that there's a first existence. What does it mean, knowing? Specifically with understanding and comprehension. Like it's explained at length in the Kuntras known as Torah Chassidus, or the study of Torah Chassidus to my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe. All of this understanding, so a person needs to be expansive. They cannot be constricted. They have to allow their mind to wander and to express itself and to expand, etc., etc. Now let's contrast that. That is Torah. Torah is one type of ark, the level of Bina. Then there's another type of ark, the ark of mitzvahs. That's Malchus, we said. So he says 4 lines from the top of the page, Mash'enkim bekima mitzvahs, as opposed to fulfilling mitzvahs. Shetzarech lis betachsa bittul davke has to be in an ultimate state of bittul agaber etzoyin shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in comparison to the will of Hashem, that one has to completely devote themselves and accept the will of Hashem in mitzvahs. So too it's also concerning the mitzvah of Torah study itself. What does that mean, that a person has to have bittul in his Torah study? Why is he studying the halacha in the Torah? Why is he comprehending it? Why is he putting in so much toil? He's doing it not just as a theoretical type of exercise, but he does it for the sake of fulfilling the mitzvah. Bittul has to be in a total bittul to Hashem. Yid cannot say, well, since I'm learning Torah with my mind, I'm going to go ahead and make a whole pilpul with Hashem. Maybe I should do it this way and not the way you said. Even with a human king, it's impossible to argue with him how to act. Because a person that's standing in front of the king doesn't argue with him. How much more in the King of Kings Hashem? So too, it's also in the mitzvah of Torah study. Because the Torah study is also a mitzvah. At the same time that the actual study, the person has to be spatial, like we said before, he's expansive, but the actual approach has to be with a bittul. One has to make a blessing on the Torah initially. What does that mean that he makes a bracha on it? By recognizing that Hashem chose us from all the nations. That is the preface and foundation and introduction to understanding and comprehending the Torah that he studies. Only when he studies Torah on that foundation of bittul, so the Torah becomes a medicine, a healing thing. That means that he's predicated his Torah study, the mitzvah of Torah study is predicated on total bittul. So now the Rebbe is going to explain this. This is the ark of Noach by every second paragraph of the page. These are the 2 levels of the ark of Noach that has to be in the avodah of every single yid. The avodah, the limrat Torah, the avodah kiyam mitzvahs, the avodah of Torah studying, the avodah of fulfilling mitzvahs. These 2 things are to be found by every single Jew. Both those that are sitting in the tents, masters of Torah, have to do both, not just Torah study, but mitzvahs. Also in business people, the masters of good deeds, they don't just do good deeds, only mitzvahs, they're supposed to study Torah as well. Like the Chazal say concerning those that sit in the tents of Torah, someone that says, all I have is Torah, I'm sitting in yeshiva, I'm sitting and learning, that's all I need. So then even Torah he doesn't have. Al-Tzadikli is Torah, there has to be Torah and acts of kindness, there has to be Torah along with the mitzvahs accompanying it. So on the other hand, concerning business people, they also have to have Torah study. The noise was in addition to the fact that they laid us a ma'aser sheyasim, to be able to know the actions that they're supposed to do. He has to study the halachas, or he has to listen to them from others. So therefore, he needs also the idea of Torah study. He's not going to know the mitzvahs to do if he doesn't learn Torah in some way, either himself or hearing it from others. In addition to be able to do the mitzvahs, he needs to learn Torah. Also, business people have to have a set time for learning Torah, not just halacha, not just to know what to do. Third paragraph on the page. And many Amarmits explained that the ark of Noach in the Avodah Hashem, who avoided the Torah Tefillah, this is the Avodah of Torah and the Avodah of davening. When it says the word Teva in Lashon Kodesh, which means ark, can also mean words. Meaning that Baal Shem Tov said one has to enter into the words of the letters of learning the letters of davening. And coming into the Teva means entering into the letters, into the words of Torah and davening. When it says that you have to have a tsoyar, you have to make for the ark, you have to ensure that the letters, the words of Torah and davening should be illuminated, just like the tsoyar in the ark, whatever it was, whether it was a window, whether it was a precious stone, illuminated the teva. How is this davening illuminated? When his avoid of davening is by meditation and with awe and love of Hashem. Also, his Torah study has to be impacted and infused with awe and love of Hashem, specifically. Like it's explained in Tanya that the Torah mitzvahs that we do not fly upwards without the wings of awe and love. And there needs to be the wings of his Torah study, that through that his Torah study can fly upwards. So the Rebbe says in the second to last paragraph on the page, that the light and pleasure of this avodah will become revealed in the future. Who comes down through our actions and service, the lefum tzara agra, according to the suffering is the reward. The tzorach, the descent is for the sake of an ascent. Now through the descent, through the suffering, through the pain, will become revealed the delight of the above mentioned avodah of Torah and Tefillah and Torah mitzvahs. Since also in the time of our work, meaning at the present, we already know about the future delight that will be revealed when Mashiach comes. Though the avodah is a breaking type of labor. And there are many concealments and coverings, ungodliness. Is still in all through this very knowledge that in the future the light will become revealed. We also have the delight in our actions and our service at present. Especially since this good thought, Hashem already connects it to action. In the place that a person's thought is located, there he is found. So therefore, the awareness and the will and the desire for that delight that he's going to experience in the future, Hashem helps him to experience it now as well. Last two lines on this page. Toldos Noach ish Tzaddik. That's what it means. The Elo Toldos Noach is a man of Tzaddik. The Toldos Perusha Kanal Mash Iker Toldos En Tzaddik Memaisim Tovim. Toldos is like we explained before from Rashi that the main offspring of tzaddikim are the good deeds. Hainu betchilos avodah. This means at the beginning of his avodah, ubecholza oimer noach beis pamim, still in all, even though it's the beginning of avodah, he says twice noach. Shagam betchilos avodah, even at the beginning of his avodah lefnei vayarach havayas reach nechoyach, even before Hashem smelled the pleasing scent. Kvar yesh nebezeh inyan den noach neiche de rucha. There's already the idea of the noach, the pleasing spirit, the pleasant spirit and the delight of his avodah. Because now, like we said before, the that since he knows that afterwards will become revealed the delight of his service, so already at the beginning, when he's first doing his avodas Hashem, he's first entering into his maisim tovim. He's now going to first start doing his avodah. It's already has, and he's connected with that delight and that pleasing scent that Hashem is going to have after he brings the carbon, after the mabel. V'yaserim is even more so. Sheyesh kvar gam anachsurach v'atainim sheizgal l'asud lavi. There's also in it also the delight and the pleasure of that's going to become revealed when Mashiach comes. Like it's brought down the medrash on the pasuk because the waters of Noach, this is for me. It'll be pleasing for Hashem, the gifts and the offerings of Yehud in Shalayim, like the days of forever. Rabbi Omer Kimei Olam Kimei Noach. What's it mean? The days of the world, like the days of Noach. Shenamar Kimei Noach Zoisli. That the waters of Noach was for me. The intention of this is Shagam Oz B'Mei Noach Haya Gilu D'Mei Olam. And even the times of Noach, there was the revelation of the everlasting days. The revelation of the everlasting days, according to one explanation, it goes on the future time, and that was already there in the days of Noach because of what we said before, that at the beginning we already know what's going to be, we experience what's going to be later on. So the Rebbe concludes, we said that the lower we go, the more suffering, the more pain, the more breaking labor, the greater the delight. From tzara agar, according to the pain, is the reward. Afal became still in all mekim shah Torah chesed, since the Torah is a Torah of kindness. Lachein mekim sha'adam etzadecha dumad dumugbal, since a person on one hand is measured and limited. Uleidach harei never banim atma lavai lekechem. On the other hand, says that Yidden are children to Hashem your God. B'ni b'chari Yisrael, my child, my firstborn Yisrael. V'yadu Torah Baal Shem Tov, and it's known the teaching of Baal Shem Tov, the Avas HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael ki Avas Harim Zkenim lebnam Yechidam shenoydol hem leisuk nasam. That the love of Hashem for the Yidden is like the love of elderly parents, that an only child was born to them in their elderly years. Therefore the Rebbe says we should not have to have this breaking labor in the simple sense. Even someone that's found in the palace and the private chamber of the king, still, while being in the royal palace, he still experiences the concealment of Hashem. That it's enough considered breaking labor. He doesn't need physical breaking labor. Because that's the opposite of his nature and his habit, that a child should be away from his father's table, like the Rebbe often says. This is understood. How much more so? From what's explained in the Gemara, that just giving men's work to women and women's work to men, that's already called avodas perech. Why? Because it goes against their nature and their habit. So how much more so a Jew? This is obvious that an only child of the King of Kings Hashem, the fact that Hashem conceals his face, it's the opposite of the Yid's nature and habit and custom. It's the worst type of breaking labor. This means even when he has his necessities. For a prince, what's considered necessities? He needs to have a horse to ride in it, needs to have a crier, a servant running before him, and he needs to have even 50 servants running before him. These are all necessities for a prince. If that's the reason why you can give it to him from a charity fund, that you not have an obligation to make a poor person rich, but you have an obligation to make a person who is accustomed to live a certain way, if the charity can afford it, to make sure he has this. And not only that a prince, he also has riches. For a prince, the idea of riches is that they give him all types of wealth and treasures, the concealed treasures of a king, that they were never used. They were sealed away and hidden from the eyes of anyone to even see it. And even the king himself never used them for anything. Like to explain at length in the Mamarim of Yud Shvat. All of this is given to the prince. And despite that, even when he has all of these matters, necessities and the matters of riches, this is still considered a breaking type of labor. There's the idea that I concealed myself. The innermost level of Hashem did not become revealed. It's lacking the avodah to search out my face, that your face, Hashem, I'm searching, I'm missing Hashem's pnimius. By day, Maseinu, what he's saying, through our actions and service in such a low darkness and such a suffering that we're so far away from Hashem, that Hashem doesn't reveal to us, He reveals Himself to us, even though we have all the best things in the world. It will become revealed in Mashiach's times, the Nachas Ruach, that will be a rest and a delight. Even before the Geula comes, it will be that all the Jews will be light in their inhabited places, physically, with children, life, and sustenance in a comfortable way, in such a way that he could point with his finger physically and show, give a look, here are my children, here is my sustenance, etc. And afterwards will be the beginning of the redemption. And afterwards will be the true and complete redemption. Speedily and in our time, the way we understand the idea of speed and quickness.